Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our podcast, Moms on the Move. I'm Jen Wills.
And I'm Jennifer Sess.
We have Sarah Kelley with us today.
Hi.
Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I know we just had a little giggle fest earlier before we started this. But we are going to talk about your amazing nonprofit that you are CEO of Set Free.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
So Set Free is a nonprofit. We're based here in Greenville, but we work in West Africa and India. So we're a Christian-based nonprofit. We work with local partners and we work around the world. We work to solve the world water crisis. We're working to end child slavery. We provide medical care, and then we also plant churches.
Isn't that amazing?
Wow, that's so a lot.
I know, that is a lot.
It is a lot.
Well, I think because you're a mother too. So
Yes.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It was yesterday. I was in the cul-de-sac and the boys were like playing, and I was sitting there on your Instagram, like looking at, some stuff, doing like research for it. And my 5-year-old came up and he's like, "What are you looking at?" And it was a lady and she was carrying the water
Yes.
on her head. And I was like, "Buddy, this is, somewhere in Africa, not around here, but this is what they have to do to get water. They have to walk 3 miles to get clean water." He didn't even understand what I was saying. Like, I don't think I really even knew how to explain the gravity of the difference between us and just what the reality of other people have to face is. I mean, I couldn't even get it.
I don't think some adults even understand that, let alone a child.
I don't
it's
either.
It's hard to embrace and understand just how little some have.
Yeah. I think it was very overwhelming to even look at some of the realities of when I was looking at the child slavery statistics and that. I just felt oh my gosh, and it makes you feel really small.
Yes.
Right? I mean, just really insignificant when this is such a huge problem.
Yes. Yeah, I think it can get easy to get overwhelmed because they are huge numbers. There's, the number fluctuates, but somewhere around 780 million people around the world lack access to clean water. Just in the area that we're working in India, global statistics on slavery and human trafficking are huge. In India alone, there's an estimated 18 million people held in slavery, which, once you get into those numbers, it just blows your mind.
Yeah.
So when I talk about it, especially if I talk about it with kids, I try to break it down and try to put it into, here's what similar ages, here's what life is like for a child your age. It's easier with my daughter. She's 9. And unfortunately, a lot of the problems, both in water crisis and with kids, affect girls the most. If a family doesn't have clean water, it affects everything. The parents often get sick, and so they'll miss work, and there's not, paid time off. It's if you don't get work, you don't get paid. And so then that can compound into, if I don't get paid, then it's hard to provide food for my family. It takes, if you try to walk 3 miles here, it takes a long time.
I know. We had actually just come back from a walk, and I was thinking, I think we just walked 1 mile in our little loop, and it took us, we had the dog and 2 dogs, but whatever, it took 25 minutes.
Yep. And you got to think they're going through dirt paths and around. It's not like you've got your neighborhood sidewalks.
And then they're carrying it back.
Yep. An average family uses about 5 gallons of water, which weighs 40 pounds. So when you think of, you walk 3 miles, oftentimes it's an unclean water. So you might be getting it from, an open well, which is really just a fancy word for a hole in the ground, or a river or a stream. So you work so hard to get this water. It takes so much time. And then oftentimes it ends up leaving your family sick. So talking to my kids about, not in a guilt trip way, because I don't think, I don't think we should feel guilty for the fact that we live here and it's not a concern, but trying to give them some perspective of, a lot of kids around the world don't live like you. And because they take so much time, because it's so much effort to do this, a lot of times, the daughters have to drop out of school because then when they're old enough to carry it, it becomes their responsibility to go get the water because mom she's either sick or she has to care for other children. It just becomes a whole thing.
How did you get involved in this?
So I think I've always had very strong opinions about what was wrong in the world.
Uh-huh.
My parents, we had some, fervent debates around the kitchen table growing up. I've had strong opinions about everything. I think as I got older, they got a little bit more grounded in reality. And so I've always kind of found myself in the nonprofit sector.
Yeah.
The church that I attend, we've got a habit of taking our seniors on an international mission trip, kind of same, it's a fairly upper middle class white church.
Yeah.
And so that trying to give them the same perspective of a lot of people around the world don't live like you as they're about to head off to college. And so I had been mentoring a group of girls since they were freshmen. So we were all going to go together, and we've got a partnership with an organization in Guatemala. So went and visited, and that was my first place. I had traveled internationally before, but that was my first place that I had been to where you couldn't drink the water. You had to filter it.
Okay.
Got back home, was telling everybody about this experience when I got a message from LinkedIn, which I'm a lot more active on LinkedIn now, but years ago I wasn't. And it was for Water of Life, which is the organization. We changed our name to Set Free. So the original organization was called Water of Life. I got an email notification that they were looking for a communications director, which was very similar to what I was doing. And it just seemed, I wasn't looking for another job. I was happy with where I was, but it just seemed a little too coincidental that I had just had this life experience where I had learned that a lot of people can't, drink the water without some sort of filtering, or if they do, it makes them sick. Just, it's this huge problem. And now here's this organization that, is working to solve it. So shot my resume out, and here we are.
Wow, that's so awesome.
That is incredible. That door just opened up. You saw it. You attracted it, just so you know that you attracted that.
Thank you.
Really?
Yeah.
She's a life coach.
Yeah. I was talking about the kids. You were talking, was it the middle child? And then you talking to yours, and you think, do they really get it?
Right.
And they may not quite get it, but just from experience, I know, because mine are older and grown, that you are planting seeds with them. So even if they can't fully grasp everything that you're saying or doing, that you are an example, and they see things and they hear things, and either they will understand it later, or they will have children themselves and understand things differently as well. But either way, it's an amazing example that you are for your children.
Thank you.
It is so easy to keep your glasses on and get in your day-to-day without even thinking about these topics. Because again, this is something we have never dealt with. We have no idea.
It doesn't really touch us.
No.
And so it can easily be dismissed.
Right.
And especially with the petty things that we worry about.
I know.
It's
like perspective for sure.
Yeah,
I know.
Feel silly.
Right. So you, in India, you're doing a lot of the child slavery.
Yes.
And I know there's different kinds of slavery.
Yes.
Whether it's the labor or sex, trafficking.
Yep.
What are statistics for? What are that? You said 18 million?
Yeah, 18 million overall. Large majority of that are children. The areas that we work in, we primarily see a lot of labor trafficking. There's slate mines where a lot of the kids are held in that they work to, pull the slates up. And there's a couple kind of crane operators that'll pull the big pieces up.
When you're saying children, what are the ages?
9 to 12 are about the average.
Okay.
So yes, we see a lot of kids working in slate mines. We see a lot of kids working in brick factories. And by brick factories, it's actually more of just an open field where you make the bricks and let them lay out in the sun. We see a lot of more sex trafficking once the girls get a little older. So sometimes, honestly, the survival rates aren't good for, once you're held in slavery. If they survive through the slate mines, once they get older, oftentimes once they hit puberty, they'll then kind of transfer and be sold into brothels. Or we'll sometimes see older girls taken directly into kind of sex trafficking and are sold into some sort of brothel.
It's just it's such an overwhelming topic. We had, I know you looked it up. We had a local organization switch on here, and probably shouldn't be saying this, but we got really censored on that one. We were not able to share our podcast. We our numbers ever since we aired that episode were cut into like a third.
They dropped.
And so, we reached out to, I won't say
The
it.
powers that be.
The powers over it.
And social media.
Yeah. And, tried to make an argument. We had to upload our passports. We had to do this. And it was like we were just trying to, show you, we're not trying to promote it. It was like we're trying to give people a glimpse of the reality of all of this because, again, we're in our own bubbles and we just don't know this stuff. And
it's informative.
And that really has stuck with me. That has bothered me so immensely. And so, like, here we are, and I don't know what's going to happen when we talk about this again. Yeah. And I hope that we're not censored because you're trying to help.
It's for good.
Yeah,
you're protecting little humans.
Yeah, and I think kind of I think there's two parts. I think there's some people who, for better or for worse, just don't want to know because it's uncomfortable once you know.
Sand.
Yeah, once you know these problems are existing, and it can be incredibly overwhelming.
Yes.
Like it's a lot easier just to kind of turn it off. Like, nope, I'm gonna pretend this doesn't exist.
What can I do about it?
Yes. And I'll say that to me has been what's empowering because yes, overall numbers are overwhelming, but I know through Set Free, kind of doing the same thing over and over with diligence, drilling a water well to give a clean village and then repeating it over time. We've given over 2 million people clean water.
That's amazing.
Just hitting kind of one village at a time. We've been able to rescue over 60,000 children out of slavery. And again,
that's
it's just
amazing.
It is incredible.
Yeah.
And you only get that kind of through hindsight because, day to day I see like, well, here's 20 kids and here's 40 who get to be reunited with their families. A lot of them are.
So what does the process look like? I mean, so you say here's 20 kids. What do you mean exactly? Here's 20 kids.
Yeah, it looks different.
Okay.
Previously, it looks a lot like an active kind of campaign to go in and rescue. And so we've got partners who we work with kind of throughout. And
they're local too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
They're local to all of the countries that we work in. That's something that's really important to us. We honestly don't want to be the white American saviors coming in to save the world.
Right.
So as much as possible, we want to empower locals to help solve the problems in their community. They also, they live there, they speak the languages, they understand the cultural implications. And so it really is a partnership. They know the people that they serve. I understand America, and I wish it wasn't the case, but, without funding, we couldn't do any of this.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I understand fundraising here. So together, we trust each other and it works well. So in India, we've got, a lot of partnerships with different people. So they'll go in, kind of do some recon work in the mines, and then plan an evening where we think it's the safest and go in and actively rescue kind of kids out of the mines. Because we're a Christian organization, more often than not recently, it's been pastors have been going in and sharing kind of faith. The mine supervisor, sometimes their wives come to know Jesus. And so then they start to have a crisis of faith of, here's this newfound Christianity and kind of what it teaches. And that's coming at a contradiction to what I do day to day.
Yeah.
And we've developed a reputation in the area that we're a safe place for children to come. And so honestly, the 20 kids, more often than not, it's not uncommon in the middle of the night for, 20 kids to be dropped off at the doorstep of kind of one of our partner churches because we've developed that reputation.
And so then from there, you try to reunite them?
We
with
do.
their families. Okay.
Yep. Oftentimes kids are taken into slavery because their parents have taken out a loan that they couldn't afford, which is another aspect. COVID gave us the opportunity to start repaying these loans. So we've started actually preventing children. And it's the average cost of a loan is $68.
Oh my gosh.
Which then is manageable. Like, I could navigate some things. I feel like with my family of 4, we go to Chick-fil-A and it's $30.
I know.
We skip that twice. We can prevent a child from being taken into slavery. But because they're taken as debt payments, once they're reunited, we work really hard, or once they're rescued, we work really hard to find their families and reunite them with it. Now, it takes some time. There's some paperwork involved. We want to get the kids kind of medically checked out, make sure that they're okay. We also want to make sure that when we reunite them, it's going to be a safe place for them. That it was most of the time when they're illiterate, they don't understand the terms of their loans. So we really want to make sure that they didn't understand, because we don't want to reunite them and then, unfortunately, there'd be a risk that they would be taken again.
Right.
So we want to make sure that, the family's understanding of this, that it's not going to happen again. Oftentimes, we'll also make sure that we have a church planted in that village so the pastor can kind of keep an eye on things and make sure that the kids are being treated well and just make sure it's a good situation.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you just helped me to understand, like you said, it's so overwhelming and so big, but how somebody like you can go in and make a difference.
Right.
And you don't not do something because it's too big or it's too scary or too sad. Look what you're doing. Look what many people are doing. They start small. And I think you were even saying there's like a ripple effect where what you do then teaches the parents what to do, and it's a ripple effect.
Yeah. Yep.
So how has this affected your parenting?
I think a couple different ways. I think it's made me a lot more intentional, both with, how we personally use our finances, with how we teach our kids things. We're not quite minimalist, but I think we probably have a lot less stuff than the typical American family, just because I've realized you don't actually need it.
Right.
And, children around the world don't have near what we have.
No.
And trying to teach my kids that kind of perspective of, I have a very low tolerance when my kids are ungrateful for things. Probably to a fault. There's times, especially it's real bad when I come back from a trip, when I'll go visit. My partners, my husband will sometimes have to be like, Sarah,
but you're hypersensitive.
They don't, they don't know. They don't, they're still kids. But just trying to, teach them that perspective and trying to cultivate with them gratitude for the things that we have and how blessed that we are without feeling guilty about it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that we should feel guilty, but I do think because we are blessed with so much, we do have a responsibility to understand that most people around the world don't. And then if we have extra, that we can do something about it.
And also just like even a responsibility to be open-minded to hear what's going on, you know, because
an awareness too.
An awareness that,
don't put your head in the sand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I didn't even know about what you were talking about. And I've been on this earth a while. And I just, it's incredible. We need to be informed. We need to know.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't know. And it's, it's one of kind of, I think, my responsibilities to use platforms that I have to just share.
Especially the detail you shared about them working and the loans. And
yeah. Right.
And it's a complicated system.
I actually had read that there was more, and I don't know if this was like sexually based, more slaves today than ever before.
I would believe that.
Yeah. And I was like, what? I mean, it's just, and a lot of it is the children.
Yep.
Which, again, it just like blows your mind hearing.
Yeah, babies.
Yeah.
And I think too, the kind of perception around slavery is starting to shift as well. Because I think before you think, slavery and it's, stereotypically Africans that, were coming across. Or yes. Whereas I think now you hear slavery and it's, I know locally through Switch, there's the, sexual trafficking that you might see someone who's held in that you don't know.
It's, you would never know.
Right. There's the, physical labor slavery. There's also in India, it's not something that we're able to address yet. It's harder to kind of navigate, but it's more of a kind of indentured servitude type. And so that's, one or two kind of servants working within a family who aren't being paid for their labor. So I think it's a lot more widespread, but it's a little more kind of woven into general society versus just, here's the free population and here's the slave population. It's not necessarily, I think, as segmented as it perhaps historically used to be.
Is it accepted over there? Is this like, like a secret that's going on, like where you have to hide it? Or is this like, yes, we know the slaves are over there working?
That's a complicated question.
Okay.
I would say there's even people living in India who don't think it's a problem. They aren't aware of it.
They're not aware.
Right, for a couple of reasons. One, on the books, slavery is illegal. So it is, I would say it's hidden, especially in the areas that we work. It's pretty remote. It takes several hours in a van to get out there. The mines are very deep. And so if you're tipped off that, say if somebody's coming to inspect, it's pretty easy to hide where you might be, holding people in slavery. I think honestly, again, unfortunately, but it also comes down to money and power that the people who own, particularly the big mines, tend to be very wealthy businessmen. And so, again, we can argue about it, but oftentimes if people are aware because they're so wealthy, they'll just look the other way.
Right. Wow. Always, right?
Yep. Yes.
No matter where you are, it's always that.
Yeah.
But I mean that I feel like that's just so, I don't know, just important for everyone here to understand like what a donation could do. And so do you have fundraisers locally, or how do you raise?
We do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. To all.
Okay.
So we've got church partners, we've got business partners, we've got different kind of sponsorship opportunities. I'd say the large majority are just individuals who give either, one time or give kind of recurring.
Okay.
It's because again, the numbers can be really overwhelming, but most of the time, if you kind of boil it down, it's fairly affordable to make a small scale difference over time that then ripples into something huge. So I mentioned before, preventing a child from going into slavery. If you want to repay a loan, that's $68.
Wow.
Of the kids that we've rescued to care for a child, and this means they're housed, they receive medical care, we feed them, they go to school, kind of that, holistic what it costs to care for a child, that's $58 a month.
Okay.
And then for water, because we drill water wells for villages, on average, it's about $5 a person to give someone clean water, and that'll last for generations.
Wow. And you can set up like a reoccurring.
Yep. So if you go to our website, that's at setfreealliance.org. There's a give button at the top, and that's where you can set up recurring. You can give a one-time donation. We've also got a fun kind of impact tool that you can play around if you want to do just where most needed, if you want to give to water, if you want to give to kids, and you can punch in the numbers and then it'll show you, for example, if you pick water, I want to give $20, it'll show you that'll give 4 people clean water.
And are you able to give like updates to donors, like this is where your money's gone? And
so we do. We can't always do kind of specific, particularly on the kids, here's your child. So we're not a compassionate world where you're set up one-to-one, because again, our goal is to reunite them as much as possible.
Yes.
And so if you decide to sponsor a child, your money might go to this one. Well, in 2 months, if she's reunited, well, we've got another one kind of coming in. So just the infrastructure of that is huge.
Yeah.
But we have kind of annual reports. Here's where all the money is going. And then we'll give periodic updates for, here's a child who was rescued, who's gone through, or here's a village who was given clean water. Here's what life was like before. Here's what life is now.
There's multiple ways to help. I like that too.
Yeah,
there's multiple ways for you to make a difference. It's awesome.
Yep, because I feel like people are called to different things. I would love it if everybody was called to support Set Free. It would surely make my job easier. But I realize, some people are called locally and they serve, Meals on Wheels, or some people are called internationally. Some people really care about giving people clean water, and that's what they're passionate about. Some people really care about children and ending child slavery. Some people just care about planting churches in whichever ways that happens. So lots of different opportunities.
Well, thank you so much for telling us all about this and just bringing that awareness to everyone. So everybody, please look out for Set Free, Sarah Kelley, and just, think about giving a donation or a reoccurring, or just, even looking into getting more information and spreading the word. That would mean a lot. So thank you again for coming. And we want to thank our sponsors real quick. I want to thank Leisa Johnson with Fairway Mortgage, Nest Realty, Bodyworks, Parham Archenhold, Blackacre Law, Browning Studio, and Southern Girl Chic for dressing us, because without them, we could not do this podcast. So thank you so much to our sponsors, and we look forward to seeing you next time.